The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim is the latest Lord of the Rings film. So today, let's rank all 10 of the films from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name is Justin. All I do here is watch movies and shows in theaters and on streaming services. Leave your ranking down below. How would you rank The Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim alongside all of the other Lord of the Ring films, the Hobbit films as well, and the animated films? There is a total of 10 films. Have you guys seen them all by chance? Let me know. Coming in the last place, The Return of the King. No, not the Best Picture winner. The animated Return of the King film, which is created by Rankin and Bass, known for the holiday specials. They worked on this film and the Hobbit film, and we also had an animated film that covered the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and Two Towers, which was not by Rankin and Bass. Though I know there's probably a lot of people that really have a lot of fond memories watching these animated films, but it's not me. This film had a lot of music to it, and they really drew out the whole storyline with Frodo and Sam with the ring, with Mordor and trying to destroy the ring. They were developing that journey, but they were making a lot of stops along the way that really halted that journey and that development and that intensity for their journey. And you had a lot of songs, characters just kind of wandering about doing things, and so you didn't really feel that intensity and that depth to that story, which is such a good story. It's pretty non-existent within this movie. I didn't feel the climax at the end of the film. I wasn't excited to see Frodo and Sam destroy the ring. Gollum still has his really hideous look from the Hobbit film, but Return of the King missed the mark on what made that Best Picture winner so good. And that story is that journey and that eventual destruction of the ring. It's there within this movie, but it's filled with songs and just moments that feel very slowed down for a film and a story that has a very quick pace to it. It's not within this movie. Coming in at number 9, The Hobbit. This is the other Rankin and Bass animated film. What they did with this movie is that they had The Hobbit, and then another director came along and did Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers, and then Rankin and Bass just did Return of the King. So it's like a sequel to The Hobbit and an unofficial sequel to the Lord of the Rings animated movie. And with this Hobbit film, they get their point across. With the Peter Jackson Hobbit films, you have 3 films and they are very long. This is just the whole story crammed into like an hour and 17 minutes. I can't remember exactly how long the film was, but they crammed it in there. They did it. So I applaud them for actually having the whole story of the Hobbit within it. And it was made for television, so you have to have a little bit of a shorter runtime. The pacing for it is so quick. You have everything. You have Thorin at the end wanting to protect all of the gold, and the elves and the men wanting a piece of all of that. You have Smaug in the middle half of it. You have the journey with the mountain and all the doors and everything. You have the whole storyline in here. But what it misses is that development for Bilbo Baggins, how he gains his confidence throughout that journey that he goes along. He finds himself in that journey, and it's so important to him in the Lord of the Rings films and the story. And I feel like that was a huge part that was missing because of that quick pace to it. Coming in at number 8, The Lord of the Rings. This covers 2 films, The Fellowship of the Ring for a good majority of the film, and then it also covers The Two Towers, like the last 50-ish minutes of this movie. They do get rid of many storylines, but the director for this movie had said they weren't going to alter the storyline for The Lord of the Rings. They had to omit things and they had to make certain choices, but they weren't going to change things around. And so it does a fine job of trying to get its point across and tell its story. But a lot of the bigger moments from the storyline for Lord of the Rings is absent within this movie. There's also just a lot of rotoscoping where they filmed people and then they animated over it. It's very inconsistent at times with its style, especially with like the orcs. You have an odd style when there's some action scenes with the orcs, but then you have more consistent animation when it comes to Frodo and Gandalf and all of the other characters. But then you have the orcs come into play, or when Frodo is put in the ring, they switch up some of this style and it's very weird. It's a bit jarring at times, that shift, and sometimes it looks pretty bad if I'm gonna be honest. But I like what they were able to do with the story and getting rid of certain aspects of the story. They were able to highlight some of the bigger parts, more of the intensity of the ring and the journey as well. Some of the character relationships they were able to accomplish and develop throughout the film. So trying to cram two movies, two big stories into one film, they did a fine job with it. Coming in at number 7, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. I like this film, and I like that we had a different story outside of Bilbo Baggins and Frodo within this movie, and so we're venturing back into this world within Middle Earth. A lot of my problems lie with the characters. I liked Hera as a character in the storyline for Helm's Deep and Wolf, but a lot of the characters just felt very one-dimensional. A lot of characters felt like they didn't rise to that potential we've seen for them. Hera reminds me a lot of Nausicaa, and she wanted to prove her worth, but she didn't really have that chance to develop or showcase all of that. The animation is really good. The backgrounds are very detailed. The action scenes are swift. The animation is smooth. It has a unique style to it, and it's a very simple story of revenge. And so there isn't that big like wow factor to it. Nothing really excited me about this movie. I thought the characters had some personal connections between each other, which did have some conflict within the film, but overall it's a good looking animated film, but the storyline is very thin and the characters are one-dimensional. I really just didn't care too much about them. Coming in at number 6, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. I remember seeing this film in theaters and realizing that it wasn't a storyline I cared so much for, because the way that they set this movie up with Thorin and the dwarves and Gandalf recruiting Bilbo Baggins to regain their home against the dragon, when they ended the film Desolation of Smaug, I was real looking forward to Battle of the Five Armies. And then all of the moments with Smaug in the beginning of this film was really great. Then they killed them off, and that is where I just did not care so much for the storyline moving forward, because you started off with them against Smaug, and now you have the characters being greedy. They want what is rightfully theirs. Then you have all the action between all these five armies, which is intense and nicely filmed. It looks great, but it isn't a storyline that I fully appreciate, and it feels just completely drawn out. All of the action is great, but there's limited things they can do with all of that when it comes just to a battle against these characters. You already established your storyline in the second film. You ended that all in the beginning of this movie, and now you're just trying to do other things. I haven't read The Hobbit, so I don't know what's the differences really between everything, but once you get rid of Smaug, everything else is just a weak story. Coming in at number 5, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. I remember seeing this film in theaters and really liking this film. It's got a more family-friendly tone to it compared to the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson. It's got music in the beginning of the film, light-hearted scenes, some fun action, and just a chance for Bilbo Baggins to find himself and gain that confidence. It's a pretty harmless movie, filmed filled with a lot of beautiful sequences, great direction. It's just a movie that it doesn't have that same depth to it. It doesn't take the risks like the other films. It isn't a story that I do find to be gripping. With the ring and what the ring represented, how that ring had a hold on the entire trilogy, there isn't a storyline within this film that mirrored the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The storylines are there, and there is some intensity with some of the orcs and their journey. They go through a lot, and there's moments where their lives are at risk, but it isn't a storyline that has that same depth, that has that same dramatic feel to it. A lot of this movie just feels very lighthearted in tone. Coming in at number 4, The Desolation of Smaug, the second Hobbit film, and this movie just upped all of the action, bringing Orlando Bloom back within this movie. I liked what they were able to do. The whole river sequence with the barrels was a lot of fun, and honestly a standout for the trilogy. All of the moments with Smaug at the end, that conflict, the back and forth between Bilbo and Smaug really did work, and you felt that build up for Smaug. Like, it wasn't a thing that just happened and then it didn't have that payoff. It worked, and they really dedicated a lot of time to the dragon and all of the gold throughout. So at least we had that payoff within this film. A lot of great action scenes. Orlando Bloom just being so crazy good within this movie. Just a lot more action that was more intense and filmed better, and a storyline that I just appreciated more. And I like this movie. It's fun and it's fun and exciting. It still has that family friendly feel to it, and a storyline that doesn't feel as intense as Lord of the Rings, but I still really enjoy this movie. Coming in at number 3, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I just watched this trilogy for the first time ever like a week ago. And so The Two Towers, Fellowship of the Ring, Return of the King, it's all fresh in my head. And I watched the Hobbit films as well, and the animated films. But The Two Towers, when I say it's the worst of the 3, it's not a bad film at all. All 3 of these films, I have never seen anything like them. Like, when I watched these movies at home, I watched the extended editions for all 3 films. I was in complete awe. I was truly amazed with these films. And I fully understand why people absolutely love these movies. Everything from the story, to the action, to the characters, the music, the setting, costume designs, it is perfection. I will always remember watching these films for the first time just a week ago. And The Two Towers does have a few moments that feel like they are slowed down. And that's just like a journey storyline. With Frodo and Sam on their journey, we have a lot of Gollum in here, which I think is one of the coolest aspects of the Lord of the Rings, because you see that effect that the ring has on a person and how it's trying to control somebody. And I really liked Gollum's involvement within it. It added a more sinister vibe to the story, and you were able to see how dire their situation was. And so with all of Gollum in here, it tests Frodo and Sam throughout. But then you have all the other storylines with Gandalf and all of the characters that are introduced in the second film. They are fully developed. Like, you don't feel that one storyline is stronger than the other. They all have that natural flow to it. But with the second film, it does feel like there is some downtime, but even that downtime is still very urgent. And you see that the ring has this absolute control over everything within this movie. And so despite some downtime with their journey and traveling from one location to the other, all of it is still really good. Coming in at number 2, The Fellowship of the Ring. This had a very good setup of understanding Bilbo and Frodo, a more lighthearted tone within this film. And then when you understand the importance of the ring and a nice slowed down approach to building up the storyline for the ring. You understand the situation and how strong that journey is and how important it is. I love that the ring, a simple ring, has such a control over this franchise, and you feel the importance of that journey and how powerful that ring is. And in the wrong hands of Sauron, everything will go bad. And so you have a really good buildup for that storyline and the journey, and everybody taking these risks, going on this journey. That's where you establish a lot of these relationships with Sam and Merry and Pippin and Frodo, and seeing that strong connection, and then meeting Gandalf and Aragorn and Legolas and all the other characters. And Sean Bean in here, and there's a lot of moments where I recognized these from memes, but all the characters together with the Fellowship of the Ring, it did a great job of establishing all these characters. It is absolutely beautiful. You know, there's a few times in this trilogy where some of the scenes feel a little bit outdated, but for the most part, I was in awe of the locations, the direction from Peter Jackson, the costume designs, the score. About this movie, I was in awe. But it did a great job of setting up that journey, and we know that it's going to be such a long journey, and they are in for one hell of a ride, and this film did a fantastic job setting it all up. I was just amazed with this movie. Peter Jackson did a great job directing it. It is one of the best films I have seen, and I can't believe it took me so long to watch it. But coming in number one, Return of the King, and I feel like a lot of people would have Return of the King as number one. It won Best Picture, and I fully understand why. My favorite part of this film is just all of the moments with Sam and Frodo on Mordor trying to destroy the ring, and watching the ring slowly take over Frodo, and just him dangling the ring over there. Like, I was like on the edge of my seat wanting to see him just drop that ring in there, and all the drama was there. I was so like enthralled by everything, and that's because of the first and second film, that journey. You understood all that importance. But you see other characters rise to the challenge, develop throughout, have that strong connection. The Return of the King, all of the moments with the dead, that is so intense. And you have characters that have to prove their worth, Merry and Pippin, and seeing them separated and seeing them get involved as well. You didn't think would happen within these movies, but everybody comes together, and you realize that it takes all of the characters to fight against the orcs and Sauron, and then watching Frodo and Sam destroy the ring, but also just build off more of Gollum and his desire to get the ring, and how he's going to manipulate Frodo and Sam and turn on them at the end. The moments of the spider, all of it, it's just so good. I can't wait to rewatch these movies and just actually understand the storyline now moving forward, and appreciate some of the smaller details to it. But you had that journey, and it paid off so well at the end of this movie. I was just so focused on Sam and Frodo destroying this ring, and I felt all of that intensity, all that urgency. The importance of it all was so strong in here. I can understand why people have such high regards for this trilogy, and why it won Best Picture, and people consider them to be some of the best films of all time. I had such a good time watching these, and I'm glad I watched the extended edition, and I could tell which certain scenes would probably be part of the extended edition. The entire film is an A+, and I can't wait to rewatch it. So there you guys have it, all 10 Lord of the Rings Hobbit films ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Justin Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.